One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's Bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Okay, I don't always show my true countryside. Okay, and if you did not know this about me, I grew up in a small town in East Texas, Athens, Texas, to be exact. So shout out to my small town peeps if you're out there. And I felt like I needed to forewarn you because I'm about to use some terminology that you're like, oh, wow, like you're showing your true country self today. So, I wanted to tell you a phrase that we always heard growing up from all of our coaches, right? So if you're an athlete, you probably have heard this. Maybe not as country as I'm about to say it, but you've probably heard this phrase. Excuses. Everyone's got them, just like buttholes, and they all stink. Okay, I feel like I butchered it and I made it a lot more inappropriate than it really needed to be, but it's true. Oh my gosh, we all have excuses, and that's what they are. Like, they all stink. Every single one of them that you like have come to mind, whether it's starting your podcast, launching your podcast, growing your podcast, wherever you fall in the stages. And today, I specifically wanted to talk about 4 reasons why you really haven't started your podcast. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? Okay, I feel like I'm all over the place after the beginning that we had here. But you just got to show your true colors sometimes, and you should just know, Like, I'm a plumber's daughter, y'all. Like, that's not even the worst of it. I have way worse material sitting in like the background recesses of my brain that really only my close friends and family members get to see, because I feel like I would scare everybody away if I truly unleashed the country plumber's daughter that is inside of me. But you know what? It's slowly starting to seep out. I'm starting to show my true colors a little bit more, as well as my love for comedy. And I hope that you see that throughout, like everywhere that I'm sprinkling content. But today, I did want to talk about 4 reasons why you're really not starting your podcast, because this is something that, okay, if you don't know this, I recently put out a YouTube video about how I plan my podcast content, right? And if you haven't watched that YouTube video, go check it out. It's all about like an early morning podcast planning session. But whenever I was going through my spreadsheet, like God love a good spreadsheet and being able to keep your ideas organized, I kept seeing this recurring thing about starting a podcast in my Facebook group. I have these questions where I ask people, what's the number one thing you want to know about podcasting? And people are always saying, starting a podcast. And I'm just like, okay, something's going on here, because I know that these people know how to get started, right? Like maybe they don't know the fundamental logistics that I teach, like in my course or in the Potty People membership. Like I get that, but I wanted to dig a little deeper. And it's funny because I've had a few friends reach out to me recently about their troubles with their podcast. And I have dubbed myself, I'm the self-proclaimed podcast therapist. Okay, this is my new title. I feel like I've graduated from just being a coach to where I'm now your therapist. And so we're going to dig into some of the deeper rooted issues of why you aren't starting your podcast. So if you are a seasoned podcaster, if you've been around here with me for a while and you're like, Crystal, this doesn't apply to me. Well, it may apply to you in some of the ways that I'm going to dive into these issues where you're like, oh, it's not keeping me from starting. It's actually keeping me from growing, or from going from just a solo podcast to inviting people on to interviews. So just stick with me, okay? Just hang around with me for a second, because the 4 reasons why you may not be starting, and I'm going to give them to you right here up front, and then we're going to break them down. The first one is equipment and software. The next is the content or what you're supposed to talk about. The third is confidence behind the microphone. Ooh, that hits a lot of you. I know. We're going to dive into that one. And the fourth one is you're afraid you'll look like you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, those last 2, y'all, I'm telling you, like people say, oh, I don't know what equipment to use. I don't know what content, but really they're terrified they're going to look stupid, or they are just like, I don't know how to show up behind the microphone. So we're going to dig into all of these today, but I wanted to just throw them out there. I didn't want to keep you waiting on pins and needles to see oh, what's she going to talk about? I wanted to just get it out there and tell you these 4 reasons why you're really not getting started. Because to be totally fair and not feel like I'm attacking all of those, this is where everyone struggles in the beginning. Most new podcasters have either one or all of these struggles. Okay. Whenever I first started, these were all of my issues. And I'm going to use the word issues in quotes, right? Because we all got issues. If you say you don't have issues, then I don't know that we can be friends. Okay. We all got issues of some sort. And these were some of my biggest issues whenever I first started. But the thing is that if you're listening to this podcast, you don't have those excuses anymore. Remember, we talked about excuses are like buttholes. We all have them and they all stink. I know. Okay, I think I said it better that time. The first time I kind of butchered it. The second time around was a little bit better, but you don't have those excuses anymore. You have so many resources here on this podcast, on the YouTube channel, in our free Facebook group. If you're not on there, then I'll link to it in the show notes. Join us in the free Facebook group where there's other podcasters on this same journey. But You don't have those excuses anymore. So I wanted to give you my recommendations to combat all of those excuses so that you can get your podcast off the ground, whether it's in the next few weeks, the next few months, whatever that looks like for you. I wanted to tell you how I overcame some of these excuses and how you can move forward. So first and foremost, and I get this question all the time, what is the podcast equipment and software that you recommend? So I always tell students and members of the Potty People that I got started with a $20 microphone. If you haven't heard that story before, I bought a USB Fi-Fine plug and play where it was $21 when I first bought it. Now with everything that's gone on with COVID and people working from home, I feel like it's gone up to like $30. Okay, it's still not breaking the bank, but I wanted to buy an affordable microphone. And there are tons out there. So that's the one I recommend. It's Fi-Fine, F-I-F-I-N-E, and I'll link to this in the show notes, but the Fi-Fine USB microphone. The next one I upgraded to was a Blue Yeti. This is one that I had seen so many other people in the online business space using that I just by default was like, okay, I guess it's good enough for them. It's good enough for me. So that's what I started using as my upgraded microphone for my podcast. Now, it does come with a higher price tag, but it's a pretty decent microphone. I used it for, I guess, a year and a half of my show. And then I recently upgraded to a Rode, R-O-D-E, Procaster. That's what I'm using right now. I love it. It's my favorite of all the microphones, but y'all, it's not cheap. It's a few $100s, but I teach podcasting and I feel like, you know what? I wanted to invest in better equipment for my show, and that is what I use. Now, when it comes to software, I tell all of my new podcasters, Audacity is a great place to start because it's free. So many of y'all tell me, Crystal, I don't have a lot of money to spend up front, or I'm just trying this out. I don't know if I'm going to love podcasting, so I don't want to invest a ton of money. So the first recommendation, I actually learned this from my good friend, Heather Sager. So shout out Heather Sager from the Heather Sager Show. You should go listen to her podcast, but she is a public speaking coach. And she said, what I tell my people is to start talking to yourself in your phone, like record yourself in your voice memos apps on your phone. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so genius, because you can do that as a podcaster as well. So you don't need fancy equipment, y'all. Like, this is an excuse. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, the things that we're telling ourselves, I don't have the right microphone, I don't have the right equipment. If you have an iPhone, you can literally take your phone out today and record a podcast on your voice memos app and upload it to your hosting site. I do this all the time for the Potty Report. Literally. Like, you can go back and listen to tons, like dozens of episodes I've recorded directly on my phone and uploaded it to Buzzsprout, my hosting site. So it's an excuse to say, I don't have the right equipment, right software. No, you're more than likely procrastinating your podcast. Okay, now I'm going to get off my soapbox for a second. We may get back on in a little bit, but I'm going to hop down for a second because I want to go back to Audacity. So Audacity is a great free software that you can download that I think it's fantastic for beginners. But now that I have recently started working with a different software, and it's not too expensive. Okay, I will say it's not free, but it's not going to break the bank either. It's Hindenburg Journalist. I feel like this software is even better for beginners because it has some intuitive qualities that Audacity doesn't have. So for example, in Hindenburg, it's around $99. That's what okay, so first of all, let me back up. If you're a Buzzsprout user, and if you're not, you can go to crystalprofit.com/Buzzsprout to try a 90-day trial with them. But when you're a Buzzsprout user, you can go into your resources tab and there is a trial to try out Hindenburg. I want to say it's for 90 days as well. It's a long trial period that they give you. Maybe it's 60, maybe it's 90. I don't remember the exact number of days, but that's what I did first before I purchased the full-blown version of Hindenburg. And then even then, it was just $100, like a one-time fee. It's not this recurring every month. It's like, boom, you pay for it, it's done. And it makes my life 1,000 times easier. I can publish directly from Hindenburg. Whenever I'm done recording, it brings my, like, the volumes up to the right level. Like, it does all this automatically, and it's fantastic. It saves me so much time in the editing process because I don't have to do that. Okay, so that's software and equipment, which I know people just like, give it to me, Crystal. I just want to know what your recommendations are. So as far as content goes, right, this is the second reason people tell me I haven't started because I'm afraid I don't know what to talk about, or I'm going to run out of content and all the things. Well, I'm actually going to take this excuse away from you right here and right now because I have a resource that's 500 plus podcast ideas for any industry. No matter what industry you're in, you are going to find at least 10, possibly 20, maybe 50 ideas that are in this guidebook that literally has more than 500 ideas in there. And you're like, no, really? People ask me, is there really Yes, I think that there's 554 or 545. I always get those numbers mixed up. It's one of the two. I sat down, I grabbed a whole bunch of industry topics that I know a lot of this audience, like this is where you're coming from, these are your industries. And I said, okay, I'm going to challenge myself to come up with at least 25 for every category, and I'm going to throw them in there. So if you have a business podcast, finance, if you are a hairstylist, a fashion blogger, if you're in real estate, like pet grooming, parenting, it's all in there. It's all in there. I want you to go grab this. So go to the show notes, crystalprofit.com/episode 212, and you will find all the things that I'm mentioning here today. But I want you to go grab this download. So 500 plus podcast ideas. It will absolutely help you to not have that excuse anymore. I don't know what to talk about. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You at least have 10 good ideas that you can iterate on right now. I promise. You say you don't. Yes, you do. I know that you do. Okay, we can do hard things, and coming up with podcast content is not one of those hard things whenever you have a resource like this. Okay, moving on. Number 3.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Confidence. I don't have confidence behind the microphone. I feel like I'm not professional. And I get this. This is actually a legitimate excuse. If you want to call it that, it's still an excuse, but it's legit. Okay? It's the same thing that I had. Who am I? It's all the imposter syndrome questions. Who am I to start this podcast? I haven't been doing this for 20 years, and people are going to say that I'm brand new. I don't know what I'm talking about, all the things. So I want you to go listen to a podcast episode. It's Sound Like a Pro, even when you're not. I want you to go listen to this because this show was created just for you. If you're struggling with a capital S, trying to figure out, how do I actually sound like a pro? I'm stuttering. I don't really know. I can't complete a sentence. I start going off on different tangents, and then it takes me forever to edit, and yada, 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 right? I feel like it's almost the domino effect. When you don't have the confidence, then it takes you forever to get through an episode, then it takes you forever to edit, and then all that leads to burnout, and then it just makes me sad. Okay, people that burn out on podcasting, it makes me sad. So I want you to go listen to the episode. It will absolutely help you show up with your shoulders back and have that confidence that you know your shiitake, right? You know your stuff and you feel good about it. And that is what I want for you. So go listen to that episode. And then the last thing, fourth reason you are not starting your podcast. You're afraid you'll look like you don't know what you're doing. Okay, let's have a little real talk session because let's be honest, you may not know what you're doing and that's okay. I think it's one of those let's admit our problems first and then we can address them and then we can move past them because you, dear sweet listener, you are the one that's most likely holding yourself back. You're in this cycle of telling yourself you don't really know what you're doing and your podcast will never be as good as insert whatever podcast you're comparing yourself to, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. Whenever I first started, I was an avid listener of so many podcasts that were run by people that have $1 million businesses and possibly $1 million studios, right? I mean, I listened to Dave Ramsey. He was one of the very first podcasts I ever started listening to way back in the day. It was his podcast and other people that were also within his organization. And I knew that they had access to this probably several $1,000s, if not $1 million studio. And I remember thinking, well, if I ever did that, it would take me years to be able to afford a studio like that. My podcast will never sound as good as Dave Ramsey's. So why should I even try? That's literally what I kept telling myself. I was like, you're going to look stupid if you try to do this at home. You're just a stay-at-home mom. You just need to be taking care of your kids. What are you even doing? No, that's Dave Ramsey. You can't compete with him. Y'all, how defeating is that? Right? Why would I have confidence behind the mic? Why would I feel like, oh, my content is going to help so many people when I was self-sabotaging my own success? I was talking myself out of podcasting before I ever even got into podcasting. Maybe this is what you're doing too. Maybe you're just telling yourself, well, my podcast isn't as good as Amy Porterfield's. Mine is not a chart topper like Jasmine Star. I will never have a podcast that has a following like Rachel Hollis. I will never have a Dave Ramsey sized following, right? We're comparing ourselves. Or you're saying, my show notes won't be as good as theirs. Oh, I just know I want to have ads and sponsors, but I'll never get to that point. You are holding yourself back. Like you're thinking about all these things that aren't even issues because you haven't even started. That shouldn't even be an issue for you. That's never going to be an issue for you if you never get your podcast off the ground. So stop comparing yourself. It's not fair. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to your potential audience and all of the people that need your message. So let's circle back around. Hang on, I'm going to step up on the soapbox again. If you have not listened to the episode all about the ripple effect of podcasting, I need you to even stop this episode right now and go listen to it. Go to the show notes, crystalprofit.com/episode 212. Go listen to the ripple effect of podcasting because there are people right now that need the message that you are sharing, whether you're helping people save time, save money, save their sanity, you're helping them get over a loss. You're helping them navigate marriage. You're helping them be better parents. Whatever your message is, there are people out there right now that need your message, the message that only you can deliver. You can do this. You just need a plan to get there. And speaking of a plan, and I was really excited to talk to you about this, Profit Podcasting, which is my digital course, it's actually opening really soon. And I'm so excited because I have been working my butt off. Just let's not sugarcoat things. I have been working on revamping this course for the last 8 weeks. You may not have seen everything behind the scenes, but I have been re-recording, I've been editing videos, I've been putting together a killer tech library. Oh my gosh, y'all, I'm so proud of this tech library because it's all of the videos that you need to get your podcast started, figure out editing, organize your files, schedule interviews, like all the things, all the technical questions that I get asked all the time are in this digital course. And the reason why I'm really excited about it is because you no longer have those excuses, right? That's what we were calling them. Like our buttholes, our excuses, they're gone. They stink. Get them out of here. We don't need that stuff in here. So I want you to start a podcast in 2021. If that is your goal, I want you to start your podcast. And if you want to do that, if you want to go on this journey with me, then I invite you, my friend. It is not open yet. Okay, so let me throw that out there real fast. Profit Podcasting, as of me airing this episode, is not open right now, but it will be soon. So make sure that you're on the wait list for whenever that happens. So go to crystalprofit.com/waitlist or go to the show notes, check that out, because I am so excited for the new podcasters that are starting in the new year. And if you've had these excuses, if you've had these reasons why you're really not starting, then I want you to kind of give yourself a gut check. Why is it? Why is it that you've been listening to this podcast? I know some of y'all, okay? Look, I'm going to call you out right now. I'm not going to say any names because that's a little too much. That's a little too in your face. But I'm going to call you out. If you have been listening to this show for weeks, for months, for all of 2020, and you still have not started your podcast, what is holding you back? Why are you waiting? Like, seriously, I want you to say it out loud to yourself right now. Why are you waiting? Because I just ripped all the excuses that you have. I just told you what equipment you needed. I told you what software you need to get started. I gave you resources to get your content out there. I gave you a resource to help you feel more confident behind the microphone. And I gave you my best tough love speech on getting out of your own way. You have no more excuses. So I want you to get on the wait list. If you've been listening to this podcast and you're like, I really just need someone to show me step by step what to do, get on the wait list for Profit Podcasting. Let's walk through this together in 2021. If you're nervous about getting started by yourself, if you're worried that you're going to do something wrong, if you just are like, I need a checklist to know that I am on the right track, get on the wait list so you can be notified as soon as the program opens, because it is opening soon. And I am so excited about the brand new revamped version of the course because it is the best version that we have done to date. So that's all I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode today. If you want to see some more content that's a little bit more tough love and in your face, because I feel like this is what we need, because we have so many people in our podcast community, and most of y'all still have not started your podcast. So I want to know, like, if we've talked about something here today and you're like, that's not really my reason, I actually have another legitimate reason I haven't started my podcast, join us in our free Facebook community and tell me. I want to know because I want to help you. It's not that I'm going to say, oh yeah, you suck. You suck. Yeah, that's why you haven't really started. No, I want to help you. Like, help me help you. What is that? Is that Jerry Maguire? That right? It's help me help you. I want to see you create a podcast in 2021. But that's all I have for you today. So make sure you go check out the show notes so you can see everything we talked about here today. Again, go to crystalprofit.com/episode 212 to see everything that we talked about. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, "Send Crystal a text message." And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, "Send Crystal a text message." And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.